All right, so we need to make a table, but remember on our table that perfectly drawn table. I know what you're thinking, Mr. Adams, that is an amazing drawing. All right, what numbers do you think we want to use? Any suggestions? I'm asking you. That's not a rhetorical question. What did you guys use? Yeah. Start with -2 and then do -1, 0, 1, 2. Okay? So then to plug this in, I'm going to do it by hand because I'm going to ask you to do it by hand, but I'm going to say f of -2 equals 3 times, in parentheses, the -2 doesn't go there, +2 raised to the -2, right? All right. Order of operations, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. What do we do first? Parentheses, but the 2 inside the parentheses really can't be simplified. So what's the next thing? Exponent. So how do I deal with this negative exponent? Any suggestions, you guys? Does anybody remember what to do with that by hand? How do I make that negative exponent positive? Anyone? We flip it, right? So we're going to put it on the bottom of a fraction like this. So this becomes 1 over 2 raised to the +2. Well, then that becomes 3 times, what's 2 squared? 4. What's 3 over 1 times 1/4? 3/4. Now on your calculator, you probably got 0.75, yes? So let's double check that. Now, how many of you guys did this, though? I bet you, I overheard some conversations. I bet you some of you guys did this, where you went to y equals, raise your hand if you did this. You went to y equals. Did anybody do this? I overheard some people showing each other how to do this on the calculator. Some people did this. They went 3 times 2 raised to the x, right? And then if you hit second table, you get your table of values and you get 0.75. Now, if you got 0.75 and Mr. Adams is being a stickler about I want it written as a fraction, do you guys know how to do this? Everybody grab a graphing calculator and turn it on. I want you to practice this. If I want to change 0.75, I don't see calculators in people's hands. Grab them, turn them on. That's not a request. That's not a suggestion. It's a commandment. Grab the calculator. Okay, 0.75. Now, if I want to convert this to a fraction, hit the math button. This little triangle frac means I'm going to take 0.75, and I'm telling the calculator, turn this into a fraction. Hit enter. Well, bam, with the bacon sizzle, 3/4. Okay, you could do that on all of these. Now, why am I showing you this? Well, I'm not teaching you calculator 2. This is algebra 2. So I want to see the algebra. But you could double check your work. If you guys are human beings, you're probably going to make a mistake here and there. And I want you to have a way to double check your work. I still want to see all this math. But if you're going to double check it and you get 0.75, you need to know that 0.75 is 3/4. Most of you do know that, because that's an easy one that most people memorize. But not all of them you guys remember. So anyways. So I'm going to say f of -1, that's going to be 3 times 2 raised to the -1, right? Order of operations, we got to deal with that exponent first. So I'm going to say 3 times 1 over 2 to the +1, which is just 3 over 1 times 1 over 2, which is 3/2, right? You multiply straight across. 3 halves. Now on your calculator, that'll be 1.5. So if we look on our calculator, and I go to the, if I hit second graph table, I get 1.5. If I want to know what that is as a fraction, I put 1.5. What button do I hit? Math. Very good. And I'm going to change that to a fraction. 3 halves. Well, bam, with the bacon sizzle. Okay. All right. So let's finish the rest of these. F of 0 is equal to 3 times 2 raised to the 0. 2 raised to the 0, anything raised to the 0 is 1. 3 times 1 is just 3. So that's 3. F of 0, or not 0, 1, positive 1, is equal to 3 times 2 to the 1, which is just 3 times 2, so that's 6. And then f of 2 is equal to 3 times 2 raised to the 2, which is 3. What's 2 squared? 4. That's 12. So this blows up really quick, actually. So I'm going to sketch my graph out by hand. So at -2, so I'm going to make this -1. I'm going to make this over here -2. Let's go over and do -4. And you could sketch it however you want on your thing. I'm going to do this as 1. I'm going to do this as 2. This would be 1. This would be 2, this would be 3, this could be 4. I'm counting every other one, so this would be 5, this would be 6, this would be 7, 8, 9, and way up at the top is 10. This is 10. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sketch these. So -2, now pay attention, some of you don't know how to graph. Some of you are getting the x's and y's wrong. You start at the origin right here. To plot the point -2, comma, 3/4. Okay? I start at the origin and I go, remember this is x, comma, y. X is left or right, away from the origin. Y is up or down. Okay, so I'm going to go 1, 2 in the -x direction. Then I'm going to go up 3/4 of the way. So it's not quite 1, it's about right here. So that's my point, -2, comma, 3/4. X, comma, y. Remember, the x-axis goes left to right, the y-axis goes up or down. Next one is -1 and 1.5. So I'm going to go from the origin, 1 space to the left, that's my x-coordinate, in the -x direction. Then I'm going to go up 1.5. That's the point right there. -1, comma, 3/2. Okay, bless you. Then 0 crosses at 3, right? Same thing though, for this one, I go 0 spaces. So from the origin, I go 0 spaces left or right, and then I go up 3. Okay? 1 comma 6, I'm going to go 1 space in the positive x direction, then I'm going to go up 6 in the positive y direction. Now I say this because sometimes I think when you guys take a test you get a little nervous and you flip-flop them. I noticed on some of the tests on the graphs you actually do your y coordinate and it's like you got them backwards. And then when x equals 2 it's 12, so it's like way up here. So we go 2, it's like up here. Now I don't have every point plotted, but what I can do, this is -8, this would be -10. What I can do is, because I plugged it in my calculator, I'm just going to guess and see what 10 is. So if I look at my table of values and I scroll up to -10, you see it gets really small, pretty close to 0. Now we all know that it'll never equal 0, so you'll never see a 0 here, at least not the way the equation is written. So my 10, this is gonna, there'll be a point like way down here. Okay, so it's gonna be a curve that kind of goes through all these points, and you gotta draw it through the whole graph however you decide to graph it, and then put the arrows, because it goes on forever. Now there are no domain restrictions because you don't see the square root and you don't see a 0 in the denominator. So then what is the domain of this thing? The domain on this one is all real numbers. The domain on most functions are going to be all real numbers unless it's a negative square root. You can't have that, and you can't have 0 in the denominator. Okay, now the question is, can you guys do this on the test? Because this is what I want to see. When I give you this problem on the test, I want to see all this on the test. Now here's another thing I want to remind you guys. You get to make your little cheat sheet, right, in the form of your notes. When you arbitrarily choose what to write down and what not to write down, if you don't write down vital information, when you go to take the test, you're not going to remember what I just said. As memorable as every word I say, as memorable as every word that comes out of my mouth is, you probably won't remember it 2 weeks from now. So you guys need to write stuff down. And when you write it down, it goes in your brain. Okay? All right. Any questions for me? All right.